Let's hear the word of the Lord as it's found in the gospel this morning. On that very day, some Pharisees came, saying to him, "Get out and depart from here, for Herod wants to kill you." And he said to them, "Go tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Nevertheless, I must journey today, tomorrow, and the day following. For it cannot be that a prophet should perish outside of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate, and assuredly I say to you, you shall not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Back in the days of horse and buggy, there's a story about a father and son who were out for a ride after a rather rainy stretch of weather. The roads were muddy, and at one point they turned onto a road that had a single set of ruts in the middle of the road, which they began to follow. As they came closer and closer to the middle mile stretch of the road, lo and behold, they looked up and saw another horse and buggy approaching from the opposite direction using the same set of ruts. Now, both buggies and their occupants stopped, of course, when the horses came head to head. The father with the son quietly told the other driver that he would have to back up. But that man who was alone argued that the father and his son could back up just as easily as he could, and so began an unpleasant exchange in the middle of this muddy country road. Now, tensions finally resulted in the man with the son looking the other man square in the face and in a rather ominous tone saying, "If you don't start backing up, I'm afraid I'm going to do something I'm going to regret." Reluctantly and still staring the father and son in the face, the other man began slowly backing up his horse and buggy down the long road. As the father and the son patiently waited, the son turned to his father with a question. Since the son had been raised in a Christian home where force and violence were taught to be improper, the boy asked his father, "Dad, what were you going to do that you were going to regret later?" And the father demurely answered his son with the truth. "I was going to regret having to back up this horse and buggy for a half mile." When is the last time you had a very specific task, objective, or destination, or mission, and you came head to head with obstruction? You know what I mean. When did something arise that immediately threatened to dissuade you from your mission, whatever it was? It may have been heavy traffic. It may have been inclement weather. It may have been a critical comment. It may have been an angry look from someone. Or it may be a beautiful day that simply made you say, "I'm going to forget it and go fishing instead." Putting it more positively now, what sustains our resolve to stick with something and to achieve the goal that we feel compelled to pursue? It doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 75 years old, nothing is more revealing about our character than our determination when it comes to fulfilling the mission that God has given us. Now, most importantly, as a follower of Jesus Christ, we need to ask what keeps us committed to obeying His will and His calling on our lives. Now, most of us have known individuals with different missions. For instance, we've known people whose mission is to be best at something. They're very competitive. They will stop at nothing to discipline their physical body It may be for the Olympics or some sporting competition, but they're committed to compete not simply as a participant, but they are running to win. We've also known people whose goal is fame, and they will make any sacrifice to achieve it, including sacrificing family, friends, and even morals to realize their ambition. Movie stars, Hollywood celebrities, we've read of their example and of their own experience. Well, Jesus Christ had a mission when he came to this earth. He came down from glory for one purpose, namely to die in the place of sinners, to be our sin sacrifice. He also stated that the method or the practice that he would follow in order to achieve that goal was this. He said, "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many." In the previous chapter, to this 13th chapter, Jesus said, "I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it is completed." Now we know what the baptism was. It wasn't the baptism that he experienced from John the Baptist in the Jordan River. No. This was the baptism of excruciating suffering and agony on the cross of Calvary, his coming crucifixion. Jesus dreaded the physical pain and suffering, but he dreaded even more the spiritual separation that he would have, so that on the cross he would actually cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That was the baptism. Now, this compelling mission of Jesus becomes clear when we consider his response to a delegation of Pharisees that were obviously sent to intimidate him. I mean, there's no need to go into a great deal of detail about that. On this particular occasion, Jesus' ministry had taken him into enemy territory. It was territory ruled by Herod Antipas. The Pharisees hoped that they could pressure Jesus into stepping up his itinerary and frighten him into going into their territory where they could apprehend him all the sooner. Now bear in mind that Herod Antipas's father, Herod the Great, was the one responsible for killing the young children in Bethlehem after he had conferred with the wise men about the infant king they came to worship. Furthermore, this Herod Antipas had already shown his wicked propensity when he had John the Baptist beheaded in prison. Now, needless to say, this man was capable of deadly force, and Jesus knew that. We can't be dogmatic about it, but it seems that Jesus was in the area of Perea, intent on going up to Jerusalem. And actually, they wanted Jesus to go into Judea, where they would have authority to deal with him after their own wicked inclinations. Now, our Lord's reply must have mystified this delegation of Pharisees, because Jesus not only refused their suggestion to flee Herod's murderous attempts on his life, but he uttered one of the most contemptuous comments he ever made about any individual person. He called Herod that fox. Jesus stigmatized this evil ruler as a cunning opportunist who was subservient to those above him, but ruthless when it came to anybody beneath him. Now, there is today in our society a respect and a deference, I fear, given to some that frankly make heroes out of rogues. Proverbs says, like snow in summer and rain in harvest, honor is not fitting for a fool. My, that's a verse that needs to be inscribed on your television set. Like snow in summer and rain in harvest, honor is not fitting for a fool. Now clearly, the Bible does not teach name-calling. The Apostle Peter taught, honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king. At the same time, Jesus had no reservations about calling black black when he saw it. Here was a ruler who was sly and stealthy as a serpent, as a fox, deceitful. And God calls us to be discerning when it comes to character, when it comes to who or what we permit to influence or to pressure us. Someone who openly sponsors filth, perversion, lawlessness, whether it's in the art world or whether it's in the entertainment world, whether it's in an educational institution, or whether it is as a government official who grants a free pass to drug traffickers who can go out and destroy another life after they get out of prison. They may be called by a host of flattering titles: generous, granting amnesty. But if they're committed to lowering the moral and spiritual climate of a nation, mark it down. They deserve the discourteous title, fox. And Jesus called the Pharisees in his day a brood of vipers. They were incapable, he said, of uttering any wholesome words, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And they didn't have anything good inside, so they couldn't say anything good. Now, what we have to realize as Christians is this: whether it is a lunatic fringe that pulls down crosses and tries to spray paint churches, or whether it is a good man who offers only passive resistance to evil, the effect is the same. When you are not resisting evil, you are granting assistance to evil. Well, of course, genuine resistance to evil is not without cost. We all know that. We know of persons who have stood up in the political world and their reputation was affected. We have known others who have taken a stand and it cost them. But Jesus recognized that while he felt no panic about the Pharisees' threatening message that Herod was looking to kill him, it didn't necessarily follow that Jesus had no sense of responsibility for his mission at all. Luke emphasizes his deep sense of mission, a strong sense of duty. And it was evidenced by three phrases that Jesus used in these short verses. One, he said, today and tomorrow. Then he said, two, reach my goal. And then he said, I must journey on. First, if Jesus were to operate on the assigned schedule of the Father, then today and tomorrow could not be wasted. They had to be taken up with two serious things. One, driving out demons. That is, evil had to be confronted and driven back. And two, performing cures. That is, showing and demonstrating the saving power of God. Now, the follower of Jesus Christ is called not only to resist evil, but to fight the good fight of faith. And that takes energy. That takes resourcefulness. We're not only to be on the defense, but frankly, we are to be on the offense. We are to advance the cause of truth and righteousness. In a speech in 1940, Winston Churchill said, "Victory at all cost." Victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, For without victory, there is no survival. Well, secondly, Jesus confirmed that he was not simply free to kill time. He had a specific goal. And the goal would be to taste death for every one of us on the cross. And then, on the third day, to rise from the dead. Now, Herod could do nothing to interrupt this schedule by means of any concealed assassination plot. You must know the harbor, all of us must know the harbor to which we are headed if we are to catch the winds that will take us there. And the problem with so many of us is that we do not have a goal. Now the thinking has become survival. The thinking has been, let's see what happens. That's not Christian thinking. That's living without a goal. That's allowing yourself to be carried by the current. And the current will always carry you to destruction. Thirdly, Jesus said, I have to journey on. Today, tomorrow, and the next day. Because the point is to arrive in Jerusalem concurrently with the event of the killing of the Paschal Lamb. And Jesus would by that symbolize that he was our Paschal Lamb. He is our Paschal Lamb. Herod would never succeed in prematurely putting Jesus to death in some small town, some enclave, some quiet corner of the territory or of Judea. Because the prophetic word was that Jerusalem, for the prophets, was the terminus ad quem. It was the place where they finished their lives. Jerusalem had shown their contempt for God's true servants, his true prophets, and that's where Jesus would meet his end as the Son of God. But notice, Jesus said, I must journey today, tomorrow, and the next. He was conscious of God's perfect timing and of completing each day's agenda on the way to the cross. It was just not, let me get to the cross. I don't care what's in. No. Today, tomorrow, and the next day. Now, for 7 years, David Livingstone navigated the jungles of Africa from the coast of Zanzibar all the way toward the Nile River. He encountered clashes with savages living in the jungles. He encountered noxious insects that delivered a deadly bite. He encountered impassable areas of the jungle. He encountered starvation. He encountered disease. And there were many near-death experiences. But in his journal, this is what he wrote with calm self-determination. Quote, I've endeavored to follow with unswerving fidelity the path of duty. The prospect of death in pursuing what I knew to be the right did not make me veer to one side or the other. Now, the great and compelling call of the Christian life is to reconcile the I wills of my life with the I musts of God's mission. God's mission for me. When that happens, there is a certain invincibility for mission that grips us and gives us enormous courage. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Or as the Apostle Paul, relating to his first arrest and the trial, he said this, at my first defense, nobody stood with me. Nobody was there to support me. But everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side, and he gave me the strength so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it. I was delivered from the lion's mouth. And the Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen. Yeah, there's a certain invincibility. You think the doctor has the last word? Do you think the attorney has the last word? Do you think your checkbook has the last word? Do you think your car has the last word? Do you think your relatives have the last word? No. There's a story about a one-legged school teacher from Scotland, and he was reputed to have come to Hudson Taylor, the great missionary to China, and he offered himself in service to go to China with Hudson Taylor. And Hudson Taylor had one question he asked him. He said, "Why in the world do you, with only one leg, think of going as a missionary to China?" And the disabled man replied, "I don't see those with two legs going, so I must go." And so George Scott was accepted for the mission field in China. But this was, or should not come as any surprise, to hear Jesus say this today, tomorrow, and then the next day. Since his childhood, Jesus was compelled by a sense of the I must. As his family was returning from Passover in Jerusalem and assumed that he was among all of the friends and relatives that were traveling, they finally discovered, that is, his mother and father discovered, that he wasn't there. And so they had to return to Jerusalem, and they found him in the temple. And he was there sitting among the teachers and asking them questions. And when they found him, they chastised him and said, "Didn't you know? We're looking for you." And he said, "Didn't you know that I must be about my Father's business?" You know what? I hope I never reach a point in this life where I'm content simply to see how successful I am in avoiding involvement in anything serious. I don't want a playboy mentality. I don't want that to be the hallmark of my life. I hope I never become immune or exempt from the element of danger altogether. Because none of the people receiving honorable mention in this book ever escaped danger completely. Instead, what Hebrews 11 says, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, put to flight the armies of aliens. Women received their dead back to life. Others endured torture, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and tormented. That's the life of prosperity as God gives it. Isn't that shocking to you? Don't go by the billboards on I-376 approaching Coraopolis. Here's the message right here. This is what prosperity is about. It has been given to you not only to believe on his name, but also to suffer for his sake. Popular message? No. It's not meant to be. Many are called, few are chosen. Narrow is the gate that leads to eternal life, and few there are that find it. Suffice it to say that if this is God's world, and surely it is, and if we perceive that since God has given us life, physical life now, and he's given us spiritual life, then it must be his will, and it stands to reason that each crisis, each pressure, each challenge, each obstacle is a glorious opportunity to bring the power of God to bear on that situation. Whatever the situation, illness, temptation, hardship, relational difficulties, broken promises, opposition, criticism, whatever. When someone came to the psalmist urging him to flee because the wicked were in hot pursuit, he had already trained his thoughts in the direction of God's power and righteousness and could therefore say, "In the Lord put I my trust. How can you say to me, flee as a bird to your mountain?" Or Nehemiah's response to the troublemakers in his day, trying to halt his mission of rebuilding the walls of the devastated city of Jerusalem, and a fabricated threat of assassination is brought to him. Should a man such as I flee? And who is there that, being as I am, would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. I think of this story about a man who met his friend on the street and shook his hand and said, "Congratulations. I hear that you made $1 million in oil in Texas." "No," came the reply. "In the first place, it wasn't Texas. It was Kentucky. In the second place, it wasn't oil. It was coal. In the third place, it wasn't $1 million. It was $2 million. And it wasn't me, it was my brother. And furthermore, it wasn't that he made $2 million, he lost $2 million. So let's not forget, in Satan's arsenal, there is not only exaggeration, rumors, and lies, but there are very clever attempts to discourage us, to make us feel that everyone else is a screaming success, but we ourselves are a failure. Well, God is not looking for success. He's only asking you and me to be faithful to our mission, whether it's at home or abroad. He's saying, synchronize your "I will" with Christ's "I must." And press on to the goal in the grace that makes us more than conquerors, makes us invincible until the mission that God has given to you and to me, that which He's entrusted to us, is fulfilled.